Hi, everyone. My name is Omar Kashad. I'm one of the adult services librarians here at the Carroll Stream Public Library. Thank you all for watching this video this evening. This is a recording. We're going to learn a bit more about cybersecurity in your small business as part of the Grow with Google series. Essentially, what the Grow with Google series is a series of presentations pre-built by Google, though of course I've reviewed the material, and of course I will add my own personal insights as well as we go through the presentation. But basically, they've created this presentation that I'm about to go through today that you're watching. Again, I'm not much of a personal cybersecurity expert myself, though I've certainly learned things over the years having to deal with cybersecurity here at the library. I mean, all employees, in a sense, have to deal with cybersecurity because it's everyone's business. We certainly don't want our library's website to get hacked. We don't want our emails to get hacked or the catalog because, again, that's personal information. And just even hearing that your website's been hacked is just like a PR nightmare. So these are give you some general tips about cybersecurity in your small business. I would encourage you, though, again, these are just general tips. Use them at your own discretion. This is not, for example, this is not it's just general advice. But again, I would just advise everyone who's watching this today, or joining us tonight, just know that, again, these are general tips. And if you really need like solid concrete advice, I encourage you to find a cybersecurity expert. But again, these general tips are certainly we can all use, including myself here at the library. And so I'll just go starting with the slides and we'll just go ahead and get started. Today's session, as I said, is being recorded. So again, it will be posted to our library's YouTube channel later this week. And I will email all the attendees the handout and today's presentation. Okay, so again, we're going to be talking about we'll be talking about cybersecurity and why it matters to businesses of all sizes and how you can protect yourself and your customers. And with that, I am going to go ahead and stop my video sharing. That way you can see more of the slideshow. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. Second here. So the following are examples of spam messages. Now you're saying to yourself, well, what does this have to do with cybersecurity? Spam messages. Your business is going to get spam messages all the time. We see it here at the library. We get like at least a dozen. Maybe that's probably a bit of extreme, but we get, even we're a library, we get like at least a dozen plus spam messages a day to our main email point, and I get them to my personal work account. So, and all your employees likely are too. So that's why it's important to recognize a spam message and know that you should not be clicking any links here, and you should not be doing anything more with this email except deleting it out of your inbox. But again, these are examples of spam messages. But honestly, the way that they're laid out, you're going to find very similar to ones that you're going to get as part of your workplace, where you click one of these links and, who knows what's going to happen. You can put in your personal information on that link and somehow, or your personal information, your work information, and suddenly your email's been hacked, or you've lost your account, and then suddenly your account is now spamming other people. I just saw an example of that last week where not our library, but another library, I got a spam message from another library saying, hey, a librarian out in Colorado, where they're like, hey, click this link, and I don't know who this person is. I knew better than to click that link. But if I click that link, maybe my email address would have been sending out a bunch of spam. And you definitely don't want spam going out to your customers. And we don't want spam going out to our patrons either. But anyway, so here's an example. Wow, you were gifted 1.5 million US dollars. I'm sure we've all seen that, even in our personal email accounts. But again, let's start with some examples of common cyber attack attempts like what we've just seen here that many of us, if not all of us, have experienced. Have any of you ever received an email like this with the exciting news that a generous stranger gifted you $1.5 million? Sounds too good to be true, right? We see this fairly often. It was called a prince scam back in the day. Even that was another one. Like, hey, I'm a prince in some foreign country. I want to give you money. But click this link and send me your bank account information. It's like, no, that's not a good idea. But again, you're saying to yourself, well, this is a personal sort of thing. Well, you know what? If one of your employees gets snuckered into it, that this is why you should keep them informed about these sort of email scams. I remember an example. Oh, this was I'm not speaking on behalf of the library. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. This was a rather unfortunate example. What happened was GoDaddy, who was a domain web provider, they emailed all their employees and said, hey, we're giving out bonuses this year. Except the bonus emails were delivered. It was a genuine email from GoDaddy, but it was designed to act was what we'll hear about in a little bit called a phishing attempt, where anyone who clicked that link got an email saying, hey, this is not a genuine email. So basically GoDaddy, again, why I say this is a sad example is they told their employees they were going to have bonuses as part of a phishing scheme to keep them aware of phishing emails, but they didn't give out any bonuses to my knowledge. That's just cruel, in my opinion. Don't do that. But share examples to your employees, but don't be cruel like that, please. Again, I'm only speaking for myself. That's my personal opinion. It's not behalf of the library, but it was just such a sad example where it's like, I understand you want to like encourage your employees not to click suspicious links, but not in this way. But anyway, but yeah, of course, you're given $1.5 million. You're like, it sounds too good to be true, right? Well, emails like this have many variations. In this case, you won $1.5 million, and you can tell something's wrong with this because A, it says not a spam message. B, this is poorly spelled. The I is lowercase. There's virtually no details, and do respond back with your direct telephone number for more and proper explanations. Who wants to know if he can trust you with $10.5 million? Can I trust you with $10.5 million? And if you respond with your phone number, he'll let you know what to do next, in which case this has now become an offline scam attempt. And then they're going to have your phone number, and they're probably going to ask for your bank account information, including, personal bank account information. They're going to transfer you the money. Well, of course, the money's never going to show up, and they may drain your bank account, especially your work account. At the bank, but you don't want to do that either. Now, here's the thing, though, which goes back to my other point. Cyber attacks are not limited to email. They can surface in many forms of communication, including text messages. I think, or even in phone messages. I think the example I said is you're gonna pick up a phone. Again, I don't personally pick up my phone if it's a number I don't recognize, but there was an example where it's like, pick up the phone for a number you don't recognize. You're gonna hear somebody on the other end saying, can you hear me, or something like that, and you say yes, and now they've captured your voice saying yes. Again, I don't know how that's really as widespread as it, or that's just trying to scare people, but especially in the world of AI, where people have genuinely faked voices and stuff, and they've scammed elder scams, for example. They can record your voice and have you say stuff that you didn't say. So that's why it's always important to watch out who's the phone number, and if you're really concerned about something from somebody else, call them back. They called you. Maybe it's not from a number you recognize. We'll call back that person and say, hey, did you genuinely call me about this? But anyway, attempts honestly aren't always as obvious as a multi-million-dollar giveaway. But you might be asked to click on a link to like renew a subscription, in which case Netflix. Chances are your business doesn't subscribe to Netflix, and you would know better, but you really want to inform your employees on that. But the ones we see here aren't Netflix, but it's like your Microsoft Office account has expired. Well, I shouldn't be getting those emails because I know that that's not my responsibility. I don't renew the Microsoft account here, and it's often poorly written. It says click this file. The file isn't even a PDF, although PDFs can be suspicious too, but it's like it's an Outlook file. It's like, no, this is all wrong. It's poorly written. It's not even from a Microsoft email address, which we'll get to that in a second. It's just not. You just got to be careful. I mean, it could be any of your product subscriptions. That's why it's important you recognize who's emailing it to you, and is it a genuine email from one of your vendors or suppliers or whatever. So this is an example. It's called phishing, when a cyber criminal impersonates a brand or person to trick you into making an account that gives them access to your device or accounts. Because you click that link, you're going to see a website that's going to look very much like Netflix, or for us, maybe even Microsoft, when it isn't. And so as you log in, and suddenly they've captured your personal information and your login information for your email and your password, and also that and then suddenly, even that link may even put a virus on your computer. I mean, we've all heard of ransomware. I mean, that's what the example we're about to get to in just a moment, where ransomware is where they basically like put software on your computer through the internet, and they basically hijack your computer, so you can't access any of your files or anything else along those lines until you pay them a ransom, which is what we see right here. sometimes the communications are threatening. Although I will say, for example, like this, this is designed to scare you into giving them what they want. They may have no control over your accounts at all. So the sender says they found something illegal, embarrassing content on your computer. They plan to let everyone know unless you transfer 13.5 Bitcoin to their account. Bitcoin is really the big winner these days for like scam currency. It's no longer cash anymore or a check or a wire transfer. The value of Bitcoin can fluctuate, but when this email was received, whenever that was, the ransom was more than 20,000 US dollars. And I don't recall what the price is of Bitcoin off the top of my head, but if you're not familiar with Bitcoin, it's an electronic currency that it's difficult to track, is to my understanding. I don't have any Bitcoin myself, although Bitcoin I'm not saying is a genuine like monetary thing. It's just do your own research in that regard. I don't have Bitcoin, but I know some people who do, and they're not scammers or anything. They're genuine people just like you and me. The backmailer provides instructions on how to make the Bitcoin transfer with a little barb that we see there, which says, if you don't know how to purchase and transfer Bitcoin, you can use any modern search engine, end quote. And best of all, they even give you some nice parting advice, which is basically, everything will be done fairly. One more advice: don't get caught in similar kinds of situations anymore in the future. My advice: keep changing all your passwords frequently. Well, this is just a piece again of they call it scareware in the computer world. It's designed to scare you into thinking that this has happened. So you give them Bitcoin and you're basically giving them Bitcoin for nothing, because nothing could be wrong. You can always change your password. These people don't have anything on you either. Sorry, I'm talking a little fast. These people don't have anything on you. I received a personal information email like this one time, and I knew it was bogus. I didn't bother, giving them what they wanted because I knew it was garbage. Although there are some people who unfortunately have been in this situation. I know there's a really sad story. I think it was a high schooler who got scammed this way. I don't know if they actually genuinely had images about this person doing stuff. They may have, they may not. I don't know. I really didn't read the article. I just read the unfortunate ending. But but it's just, you just have to be vigilant and realize that just because you get a message saying, hey, I've got you doing something wrong, doesn't mean that's genuine. It's just an attempt to get something out of you. It's extortion is what it is. So again, this is just one of those things where it's like, yeah, this is scary, but it's designed to be scary. It's designed to provoke an emotional reaction out of you, as most scams are. They want you, like, I had one about Facebook that came to me one time saying my Facebook account had been hacked, but I looked at it for a second and realized, oh, this isn't a genuine email. I'm not going to click this link to log into my Facebook account, which can then get stolen. That's happened to a celebrity rapper one time. I think that happened to him. I read about that in the news where it was late at night. He was tired. He got the spam email saying, your Facebook account's been hacked. And he unfortunately did what he did, and he lost his account. And even as a celebrity, this person was having troubles getting their account back. And that's a celebrity. I mean, we're just individuals. I know a library that had their Twitter account hacked this way, and it's just really sad. They just can't get it back. But anyway. So what will this workshop cover? Well, we're going to explain ways, general tips and tricks. Again, I'm a librarian here. I know some stuff about cybersecurity. I'm not a cybersecurity expert, but again, I'd encourage you again to just take this in mind. Take the advice for what it is. But if you really need help, find a genuine cybersecurity expert. If you're not sure who would work for you, who your cybersecurity people were, you don't have anything to lose by reaching out to friends, family, or nearby businesses and say, hey, who are you using? I like to use them as well. Sometimes, it's just something, or you can also get insurance. Actually, I was reading about this the other day. It's possible to get cyber insurance as well, which I believe it might be covered at the end of this presentation, where you can be insured for in the case of cyber attacks. I don't know who would offer that to you, maybe like a business insurance, but it's something to be aware of. But anyway, we're going to talk about how a cybersecurity course matters for businesses of all sizes, both for-profit and non-profit, especially for libraries as well. I say that here as a librarian. I'll show you some general ways to protect yourself and your customers online and explain your next steps in the event of a cyber attack. Now, because this presentation is called Grow with Google and Google made all the slides, they do mention some Google platforms on here like Google Workspace and stuff, but this isn't to be a shill for Google. I mean, you can use whoever you want. It's just tips you should be aware of for your own web hosting. We don't use Google Workspace here. We use a different or a different website host to host our website. But again, the stuff they offer here, any web host should provide as well. But again, the email stuff is just universal across all platforms. So again, cybersecurity matters for every business, because I'm sure we've all heard stories of computer security breaches over the years. Customers' data stolen, systems disabled, and access to important data held for ransom, hence the term ransomware, which is the software that gets on your computer because you clicked a link or opened a file you weren't supposed to through email or different means. I mean, one of my coworkers lost all their information because of this. This was years ago, and they were the only one affected because they downloaded a piece of software that another company advised them to download, and this was all on the level, but somehow they still lost all their files. Some libraries have been hit really hard about this. I hope I'm getting the right libraries. I believe London Public Library, like the London, England, their whole website went down. They lost their catalog. They lost everything because of a ransomware attack. And it took them months to get everything back and working again. And I know a Canadian, St. Louis Public Library in St. Louis, Missouri, I believe was also hit a few years ago, and I want to say there was a Canadian library that was as well. Unfortunately, I don't remember. Again, there are other libraries this has happened to. Hospital chains this has happened to. Not just libraries. I'm just speaking of libraries, saying even we're not immune to this sort of thing. The problem is, though, as the number of digital tools grow, they also become attack vectors for criminals and other bad actors, presenting another challenge for businesses, especially in the world of AI. I read an example the other day where like AI, because artificial intelligence or AI, people will use like Chat GPT or other stuff. And if you need to know more about Chat GPT, I encourage you to look at our library's YouTube channel, because my colleague Paul did a very lengthy video about using Chat GPT, or some of the things to be aware of. The kicker, though, is sometimes AI the word is hallucinate. It'll make up a reference to something that doesn't exist. And so what happens is they'll say, oh yeah, use this software package in order to improve your business or your whatever. Well, bad actors, people who are out for no good will realize, oh, well, AI is hallucinating that this software package exists when it doesn't. So we're going to create a software package by that name. So then unsuspecting employees will go and search the name of this non-existent software package. We'll offer it to them, but that software package, again, will have ransomware or viruses or spyware, ways to spy on people, all sorts of stuff. We just have to keep remaining vigilant. Really, that's all I can say. We have to be vigilant. And again, look at some of these examples and do more research online about why cybersecurity matters. Because, according to an online survey conducted by the Connected Commerce Council in 2022, 65% of SMB leaders, SMB being small and medium business leaders, they say that data security and customer privacy are concerns for their businesses right now. I think that should be 100%. It doesn't matter if you have good cybersecurity in place, firewalls, two-step authentication, which we're going to get to in a moment, the best, cybersecurity you have to your business, I'd say, this is to be a concern for everybody. And again, the source for this was the Connected Commerce report, Digital Tools, the Key to Small Business Resilience in Today's Economy. I'll be sending out, instead of this presentation, I don't think I have a link to the article, but the article is there. Because again, the other thing to know of is that 85% of small and medium business leaders, said that having a cybersecurity plan in place would make them feel more comfortable using digital tools for their businesses over the next 2 years. Again, that was a 2023 reference. Because again, there's no denying that there are bad actors out there, but there are steps you can take. Like they say, an ounce of preparation is worth a pound of cure, I believe is the line. But there are also actions that you can take to protect your business and your customers and start developing your cybersecurity plan. Again, these are just some general ideas for you to try and think of as you're building a cybersecurity plan, because it's important to have one in place, especially in the event that you get hacked, like media relations, how are you going to recover your data, what are your options, so on and so forth. So let's talk a little bit about how to protect yourself online. So for example, what is a cyber attack? Well, a cyber attack is any offensive action that targets computers, computer networks, infrastructures, or smartphones. Yes, your smartphone can get hacked. Your app, your iOS, your smart device, your tablet can be hacked. anything can potentially be hacked. AI, even some people are like, well, I heard that Macintosh computers like iMacs don't get hacked as often. Well, maybe, but the thing is, though, as more people start to use it, people will be hacking that, and especially with AI going back to artificial intelligence again, they can start developing like hacking tools and stuff like that. So to get into these systems like your email, your website, etc., the attackers look for vulnerabilities like weak passwords, although in some cases it can also be what's called social engineering. We see that in like the phishing emails or the scam emails I showed earlier. But I mean, back in the day, you used to call up people or do dumpster diving. I don't know if anyone saw us. Oh shoot, I can't remember the name of the movie now. It was like Can't Catch Me or Catch You or whatever it was. It was a Steven Spielberg movie, I think, with Tom Hanks, or at least Tom Hanks. It's Tom Hanks, I believe Leonardo DiCaprio, where Leonardo DiCaprio was playing. It was a biography. It was like a fictional biography, but it was based on a real person. I can't remember the name of the person, but it was like he was a social engineer. He was able to. Oh, maybe somebody knew what the title was. Yeah, Catch Me If You Can. Exactly. If you haven't seen that movie, the whole thing was. Thanks for that. Yeah, thanks for that. Afito Shu. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, because he was able to convince businesses and stuff to let him, and banks to let him take out checks, but he was working all these fake, IDs and stuff just to stay ahead of the law. But that's just it's called social engineering is the term. So yeah, so again, it's just something we got to be aware of. But yeah, it's just that movie sounds fictional, but again, that was real stuff that had happened. Um, but again, now we're more in the digital age where again, this stuff is still happening to this day. It's just so much easier now because you can email and spam people. Although calls are good ones. I mean, oh, I'm trying to think of some examples. I read a hilarious example from a comedian who once crank called Tony Blair, the prime minister at the time of Britain, and he was actually able to get through to him. Although Tony Blair realized right away it was like it was a fake call, but Tony Blair got a good laugh out of it because it was a comedian doing it. It wasn't meant to spam. But again, it's just one of those things where we just it's just so easy to be fooled. And I say that for myself too. I'm not perfect, but some things to be aware of are if you're vulnerable to cyber attacks, is think. Here's another way to look at it. Think of your computer, your phone, and your online presence like a home, or like for like libraries. It's like it's like your business basically. What's the term? Second business or something like that. It's your digital work front or something like that. Is basically saying your website is like your business, is like your store. It's your digital store, even if only you have is a website. It's just the home has different entry points, including email, social media, website, and more. Cyber criminals test the entry points by automating attacks with computer codes and knocks on every door to see which one opens. And initially, a cyber criminal may not even know or even care what's inside the home. They won't necessarily review the brand or business, information, that before attacking. They're just attacking everything. I mean, we see this so for example, on our website, we have like Google Analytics. And sometimes we'll get like spam. Again, I'm not trying to stereotype or anything. Some of these could be genuine, genuine attempts, but like we'll get stuff from like other countries who it's like, well, I'm not saying one of our patrons couldn't have gone to this country, but it's probably pretty rare. In all likelihood, it was probably like a spam attempt, like one of these cyber attacks where it's just all automated. They're trying to see if they can hack your website. And again, it's just because it's all automated tools, it's happening in a sense all the time. I'm not trying to scare you, but but for all websites and stuff, they're trying to attack your website. And some of the biggest issues though are, so that's why it's important, not to dismiss, cybersecurity, thinking your business is too small for an attack. The library's website got taken down one time. It was only down for 3 days. And before you're starting to panic, don't, because our website went down, the catalog didn't go down. The catalog is not owned by us, so basically all your private information was completely secure. So there was no concerns about that. It was just our website went down because we had what's called a DDoS attack, which is called denial of service, where basically our website got overwhelmed with like hits, and so our website vendor couldn't keep it up, so they had to take it down. We got that solved in like a day or something, but again, it's even libraries can be attacked. Like I said, I already mentioned London, I already mentioned, St. Louis, it's just, we just have to be vigilant. But the issues though are what we see here, which is out-of-date websites, which are sometimes built with less security. Software that hasn't been updated, that's a big one, although some companies end up using old software because they can't upgrade because they don't want to use new systems. Sometimes they can't, but they really should. And the other one is technical vulnerabilities on employee devices. I had to buy a new iPad because, not a work iPad, a personal iPad, because my old iPad is it wouldn't update apps anymore, and because of security reasons, because there's always someone trying to hack an iPad. They're like, well, you can't upgrade anymore. So I bought a new iPad that could allow me to be more up to date. But think about it in the workplace, our iPads here, they're all up to date. Fortunately, we have new iPads, but we probably wouldn't want to be using an older iPad, or reasonably speaking. I mean, my iPad that I had was ancient anyway, but just you need, just be aware of things. So then the question comes though, is how can you protect yourself? Well, for starters, let's talk about passwords and identity. We hear this all the time, but it's very much true. You want to create, you probably always heard this advice before, but it's good advice to have. By now, many of us have always heard advice about creating strong passwords, and it's helpful to review some basic tips. For starters, make your passwords difficult to guess. This is just some general advice, but there should be long strings of characters that include letters, numbers, and symbols. I have family that definitely do this. I do to a certain extent. Keep passwords private, and this includes work passwords as well. For example, we use Drupal is our website service, which is a content management service. We log in through the internet to get the back end of our website to update stuff. I only know my password. I don't know my boss's password. My boss doesn't know my password. The marketing coordinator, I don't know their password. They don't know my password. It's just, keep them private. I'm not saying you can never share that password with your coworkers or others, but it's just, you just have to be careful. Use a different password for each account or service. I definitely recommend that. What I'd also recommend is, and I mentioned this more in the class I did more for personal, like, being aware of spam, is what happens is when you have like an account with like Google, Gmail or Yahoo or Outlook or again Microsoft Office, you'll sometimes go to other websites and they'll be like LinkedIn, for example. The LinkedIn is a bad example because LinkedIn is perfectly legitimate, but what they'll do is they'll say, well, in ease of use, you want to create an account with us, that's great. Why don't you also give me access to your email contacts by giving me your email address and your password so I can get access to your contacts? That way you don't have to search for all these people again. I can import all your contacts into LinkedIn, and then I can then find all these contacts for you. So you don't have to search for all these people you already have contacts with in your email. That's not a good thing to do. And it's not a knock against LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a perfectly legitimate website. What happens though is companies, not necessarily LinkedIn, for example, but other websites who are perfectly legitimate, what happens is that they're the ones who get hacked. So because their website got hacked and they're storing your email address and your password as part of their website, or their backend data, that's how the hackers get it. They didn't take it from your email provider. They took it from the website who you gave your credentials to. This is also true for Facebook. There are so many websites out there like CNN and stuff. Again, I'm not knocking CNN or I'm not knocking ESPN or whoever. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that either, but if you want to log in with your email address and password, it's just something for you to be aware of. I'm not saying don't do it, but it's something to be aware of because again, these third-party websites can get hacked. We hear it all the time. And again, using different passwords means that even if someone figures out I know it's annoying to have different passwords for different accounts, like especially for everyone, but the good news though is if you don't use the same password for each account, if one of those websites or one of your accounts gets hacked, the hacker can't use your email address and your password to hack those other accounts because you're using a different password. Although this also presumes that, again, they didn't hack your email. That's why the email is the primary point of contact. But anyway, that's why you should never click random links, especially in your email. But anyway, but the bonus tip though is, make sure you use a strong password for your Wi-Fi network too. And if you're using a public Wi-Fi connection, like you find at the airport or even here in the library, I mean, here at the library, we do try and provide security as much as we can, but it's still a public network. Just, be aware if you're using a public network, maybe be aware of those things. Although some people swear by what's called a VPN, a virtual private network, which you can use on like a public network to try and conceal your information. I'm not saying don't use a VPN. I just don't have a lot of experience with them, but people say use a VPN and maybe that would work too. But again, there's so much there. But again, a website you could use is so to learn more. Google has like a page about that, safety.google/authentication. But anyway, but that's just one example. But the thing though is, you could also use a password manager. Password managers are perfectly legitimate, although hopefully your password manager doesn't get hacked too. But again, I'm not trying to scare everybody. A password manager helps you use strong, unique passwords for all your online accounts. Google, of course, provides this, but so do other browsers, and also different, even websites, legitimate or not. I don't have any examples for you of which ones are legitimate or not. But anyway, Google they'll create like a password manager. It's a way to manage all your passwords without having to remember them all. There are many options available, but they all essentially do the same thing. They help you securely store and autofill passwords so you can easily sign into your accounts. I know people who do this. I don't do this, not because I'm paranoid, but because I'm too lazy to do it. But then that's why I often forget my passwords, which is not an answer either. But anyway, some password managers can also generate secure passwords for you too. I know that Chrome does this. I believe Firefox probably does too, and probably Edge also. You can find different options for password managers by doing a search for password manager. Although again, mind your P's and Q's, do your research ahead of time. Don't pick a random website you never heard of or nobody's heard of. Google has a no-cost option, which again is the Google Password Manager. But again, there are other free examples out there. I think most browsers or even like, or maybe even the email providers might provide this, but again, I encourage you to do your research. But again, password managers, again, they'll create and save and autofill your passwords. So what happens is you go to, like you go to your bank account or you go to, your website, and when you log in, the password manager remembers your password and your email address and your email or account information, your password, and then autofills that information, which is less for you to remember, but hopefully to some degree is more secure because again, passwords, at least for Google, at least, although I think all of them would as well, are safely stored in your Google account. But anyways, you can find out more by going to passwords.google.com if you so choose. Again, I'm not a shill for Google, use whoever you want. But again, so the other thing you can do is, and you can do this for anything, email, even Amazon does this. Apple does this for like tablets and stuff like that in your iPhone, is use what's called two-step verification. This feature is also known as two-factor verification or multi-factor authentication, sometimes abbreviated as MFA. What happens is, and I see patrons do this on the computer, which is great for them when I help them with try and log into their email, is what happens is this. You put in your email address, you put in your password for like your email, or you're logging into your website, or bank accounts are this way. That's how it is from all my bank accounts. So what happens is you put in your password, you put in your email, you put in your password, and then it's going to say, okay, well, there needs to be a secondary verification, which is a code sent to a mobile phone or a physical security code sent to a computer. So what happens is, oops, sorry, I got ahead of myself. What happens is that after you log in, then it says, great, now I need the code on top of that. Because they know that when you initially signed up for the account, that you had access to a phone number that would accept texts, or again a secure email address which has the security key. That's important because that's not phishing, because if you log into a website and says send me the security code to my email and you immediately get an email with a security code, again, still do your due diligence. We'll get to that in a moment about what to be aware of. But again, you're expecting that email or you're expecting that text, which is an email or a text that the hackers don't have. It's not foolproof, but it's a very good idea to do if you can turn on two-step verification. I know it's a bit of an annoyance to be like, well, now I have to put in this code, but better to be annoyed now than hacked later. And again, you can't sign in until you complete the second verification step. This could be a code sent to your phone. You can get a phone call too. Usually, if through certain verification processes, automated. You don't hear from a person; you just hear from a voice. But a phone call requires a PIN code or a physical security key that must be plugged into the computer. That I haven't seen too many examples of that, but it's very much true. Although usually that's like very extreme stuff on the security end, but I've heard of that. So enabling two-step verification means the account is protected by something that your username and your password, plus something that you physically own, like a phone or a security key. I've occasionally seen security keys here at the library from people who come in from their employers. It doesn't happen that often, but I want to say I've seen it once, but or at least I'm well aware of it. The combination of having something that you physically own makes it more difficult for an unauthorized person to then sign into the system because they don't have your phone. They don't have your security key, or they can't get text that you get. And again, it's useful for any service that you sign into, like email, because Google offers free two-step authentication. Amazon does the same, or your password protected websites. If your business builds and sells online services or software, like if someone has to log into your account or not log into their account on your website, you might want to consider offering them two-step verification as part of your product. And giving your customers that option then will help them protect their accounts. Again, how you do this, if you're like an online marketplace, your chances are you're probably not hosting it locally on your own website. You're probably using a third party. You could talk to them and say, hey, I want you to offer this. You may have to pay more for it, but again, it's security, it's peace of mind for your customers as well. Is that sort of thing. And you make your own decisions. I'm not saying do it, but it's just something to be aware of. And so again, give them the option of two-step verification. Now, of course, because this presentation was done by Google, of course, Google Workspace and Google Accounts offer two-step verifications, but really any web host provider should provide this. Again, although again, you could also get a security key or if you're using like a mobile device for your workplace, iOS or Apple devices have a built-in two-step verification you have to turn on. Android does the same thing. Especially if it's running Android 7 Plus or iOS 10 Plus as your version of your operating software. And again, Google offers this for free, but again, it's just one more thing where it's like you're making it more difficult for cyber criminals to access your website or your bank account information as part of your business. Now, here's just some security things, which is true for anything, not just Google Workplace security. You really need to limit who can see. So here's like security checklist for small businesses. If you use Google Workspace, you have an administrative account or an admin account, but that's true for anything. That if you're doing a backend on your website, you will have an admin account, even if it's just through your web hoster, like GoDaddy or whoever else is out there whose name I don't remember, like Google Workspace, like we see here. What I mean by that is like we use Drupal here. So for Drupal, which is which is called a CMS or content management system, when we log into our website on the back end, certain people on staff are admins and others are not. It's very important to control who is an admin because if one of their accounts gets hacked, which I hope never happens, the damage that an admin can do is quite great, but if for most of your regular employees, they don't need that admin account. There's one admin account at the top, and then there could be lower admin accounts or even just regular accounts, and they all have different permissions. So like an admin account's privileges to manage services like Gmail or Google Docs in the case of Google Workspace. For other people in your organization, we have admins for our email accounts here, or even our workplace accounts, which is done through our IT department, which you outsource through the village here at the library. But again, what happens is they're the ones who are the admins, which is good because I forgot my password earlier, and I called and I spoke to them and I got in touch with them. I say, hey, I forgot my password, and they know who I am. I called from a library phone, and they were able to reset my password for me. But again, you could do that with your own, whoever your IT people are. If your business does not have a dedicated IT administrator, you're probably the admin. We have admins here at the library too, who aren't related to IT. So again, here are some tips to help the admin set up the Google Workspace or whatever website you're using or website hosting software you're using. Again, you want to limit who can see newly created files. You can control who can see files created by the users in your Google Workspace account. I talked about this more when I did the Google Docs program, but anyway, which is also on our YouTube channel. But again, it's just saying, you want to control the files that people have access to, because the thing that you're sharing, especially through like a site like Google, because again, you don't want we hope bad actors are external people and something they hack into your website and they're able to change stuff. But who's to say one of your employees isn't a bad actor? I'm not trying to scare you, but we'll hear about employees who, again, this has never happened at the library to my knowledge, who embezzle money, or they're taking, embezzlement is really the big one, but they could be altering files, they could do all sorts of stuff. That's why you really know how to limit to a degree what your employees have access to, just again as another form of security. It's not like you don't trust your employees, but you're just trying to be precautious. You can also add an automatic warning, which I don't know if other websites do this, but it's kind of nice that Google Workspace does. If a file is being shared with someone outside the organization, that's useful for the admin to know in case somebody's sharing a file with an outside factor who, maybe somebody hacked that account and now they're sharing a file outside of your organization, and that bad actor might be putting in bad links into whatever that file is or whatever that web page is, because that's how people, again, can get hacked by being on your website that you don't know has been hacked. And these people on your website are clicking malicious links, and they're being hacked themselves. Although I remember a really silly example of this, which no one was sure if this was genuine or not, but a long, long time ago, back in the far off days of 1997, and yes, the internet was around in 97. I know because I used it in 97. The Lost World Jurassic Park had an official website, and at some point it either got hacked or was an or somebody was just having fun with it. They hacked the logo to say Jurassic Pond, and instead of the dinosaur logo, it had a duck logo. Those were the days of innocent hacking, but nowadays, of course, it's a giant business. But that was kind of funny. But it's like, maybe you should control whoever had access to the front page of the website, who then altered the logo. Again, I don't think anybody ever figured out, was that a genuine hack or just Universal having fun with it. But anyway, was it an internal thing? But anyway, yeah, like I said, you also got to watch out for stuff, especially if you're using like internal services like through Office and other things where you got like a shared calendar. Company calendars can contain sensitive information, so you may want to restrict calendar sharing so external users cannot see event details. That's how it is here. External users cannot see anything internal we use Office 365, in order to see this sort of stuff. And again, you don't want to get locked out of your account. So if you set up a recovery phone and an email address, or Google or whoever, can send a new message or send a new password via phone, email, or text. And you can also get step-by-step instructions for how to do this through the security option, the help center, again, for Google Workplace Security. But again, use these tools for whatever your website is, or whoever your website host is, if you have a website, or if you're using something like WordPress or like Salesforce.com, or even if you're even on Etsy or something like that, or eBay. Just be aware that you probably want to be careful, again, with that two-step authentication. Again, being careful. If you're a sole proprietor, you really don't have this issue, but if you have employees, it's just something to be aware of. And again, control and see who shares your files. This is just an example of how to do this in Google Workspace. But again, this is something you want to be aware of. If whoever these files are, like I said, at our website, we use Drupal. Again, there are only specific people who are admins, and there are people who are not. And it's very important for that reason, in case, also because, heaven forbid, an employee does something they didn't mean to. It was completely accidental. But again, although the good part about, at least with these sort of shared things like Google is if someone's sharing access to something, and you can always revoke that access later. You can also revert a file too. You can also choose if someone can print, download, or copy the file. Like even with like a PDF that you share like to another organization, you can password protect a PDF, for example. But what about protecting your equipment, your apps or applications, and your data? So we talked about passwords. Most of that you probably know, but here's some things to be aware of, which even they told us here at the library from our IT department, especially when we had our own IT person on staff. For starters, don't leave your computer unattended, especially if it's logged in. Don't do that. Our computer's out there in the public. I lock my computer when I walk away. You want to use a lock screen like it says, you should, and I won't say who this was, but it wasn't a library staff member. I heard this story from somebody else. This did not happen at the library, but someone who forgot to log off of their computer when they left for the day, and so they had to go back in to grab something, and they saw that one of the janitorial people was using their computer, not to hack it, but looking up websites, which I won't repeat, and my fortunately the person told them, hey, don't do this, and then in the future they knew to log off. So again, you say to yourself, well, no one's coming into my office. You don't know that. So and again, when we're out there in the public with our computers out there in the public, of course we're locking them. I lock them even if my employee's sitting at the other desk. Not because I don't trust my fellow employee, I do, but they may walk away from the desk, and then anyone could walk up and start using the computer, use the back end of stuff. You really want to have a lock screen. And again, that's what our IT department impressed on us. It's a security feature that requires a password to access data and programs on the computer. Computers have lock screens. That way, if you step away from your computer for a few moments, the lock screen keeps your work private. You could also have like a built-in timer to log you off or lock your account if you walk away and realize, oh, did I forget to log off or not? Well, you can have it set to like a minute or less, where if nothing's done on the computer, it'll auto log you off or auto lock your account. We have that here. If you're responsible for distributing computers to employees or colleagues, make sure they can access only the devices that are assigned to them. Again, through passwords and password managers, like again, I cannot access any of my fellow coworkers' computers. I can't. I don't know their email, their account. I don't know their username, and I don't know their password. And it's good that I don't know those things. So for example, a sales team, in addition, people should also have access only to the tools that they need to do their jobs. Only select people on our staff have access to the back end of the website. It's not everybody, because not everybody here needs to have access to that. Similarly, there's stuff that I don't have access to that some of my other coworkers do, which is good, because they're saying I don't need to access that stuff. And if I did access it, again, I would never do anything malicious. Although, of course I would say that. I would never do anything malicious though. But I can unknowingly cause problems through well-intentioned stuff. I mean, I use our Canva account here at the library, and I got no clue what I'm doing. I mean, I use only my personal files in Canva being a graphic design software online, but I don't know how to use Canva all that well. That's usually I ask my coworkers, please do this for me, or the marketing coordinator. I'm like, I'm Canva clueless, is how I like to put it. But anyway, so for example, a sales team might need access to inventory records, but not payroll data. I don't have access to payroll data here at the library. Otherwise I give myself that $1 million raise. That's just a joke. But again, I don't need access to the payroll. Only management staff has access to the payroll data here. Also, you should always be audited by somebody who doesn't work on your staff either. I've heard some horror stories about, people like, don't trust your accountant. Well, don't trust the person's. Again, I'm good friends with our business administrative assistant here. But again, you always need to be, well, we're audited every year by an external company, which is good. You need to do that, because otherwise this bookkeeper, I heard of this small company somewhere, they trusted their bookkeeper. The bookkeeper was doing the auditing, and even though she was an old lady, she was in her 60s or 70s, she made cookies for everybody. Everybody trusted her. She was embezzling from the company. And she was like, somebody like, oh, well, grandma wouldn't embezzle from my company. Yes, she would. I'm not saying she would all the time. Oh, everyone would. But this little old lady who you think is nice and innocent, loves to bake cookies and wishes everyone a happy birthday, she was embezzling money from the company because they weren't getting external audits done. But anyway, so yeah, if system access is limited, there's less risk to a business if a device falls into the wrong hands. Finally, make sure hardware comes from a trusted source before using it, especially in the world of USBs. A USB can be corrupted, or it can have hacking software on it. All they need to do is plug it in, and it's all over. So that's why, if you find a USB to stick on your device and you're not sure where it came from, don't plug it into your computer. Fortunately, the public computers we have here are very well locked down. So if a USB device comes out of nowhere, And again, I will cautiously plug it into one of the PCs out there because again, I know those PCs are designed they're very locked down. It's very hard to put a virus on them. Not impossible. I'm not trying to tempt fate. I'm not trying to challenge a hacker who may be watching this later. Because I would not do that. I don't think anything's unhackable. Um, but anyway, so at least those are locked down, which I really felt cautious. I just plug it into one of those and not into my work computer. I would try to definitely avoid plugging in a random USB into a work computer. I don't care if I don't know what's on it. I don't know what's on it anyway. So again, but you also want to keep your mobile devices safe. If your colleagues and employees can access company information via smartphones or tablets, you need to consider creating a mobile device management policy as well. The policy could be require employees to encrypt their devices, require a PIN to unlock them. All of our iPads here at the library have a PIN. None of them you can't just flick and have access to the departmental iPads. And then allow remote wiping of data is also the big one. Unfortunately, I don't have much research in that regard, but you can look it up. But like Apple devices, I believe, yeah, you can remotely wipe an iPad if you think it's been stolen. You can remotely wipe an Android device if you think it's been stolen. Because if you allow employees to access company data from their personal devices, you need to consider what could happen if that device is stolen, lost, or even if the employee leaves the company. When it comes to our website, we regularly delete accounts from people who no longer work here. Again, I don't think those people would do anything malicious, but you really don't want to have people who no longer work at your company have access to your files or your website or anything because, again, they don't work for you anymore. They don't need access to that information. Again, they could be hacked unknowingly, and suddenly there goes your website for something that, again, was just totally innocuous, something you didn't have any control over. And again, one solution is remote data wiping, a feature that enables an authorized person to send a command that completely erases all stored data on a device. This option can protect your company's assets and reduce the risk of data breach. I'm sure we have that here. Again, I'm not saying that definitively because again, I don't need to know. It's not my place to know, but I'm positive we have to have it set up that way. Because our IT department again goes through all that stuff and they're well aware of these things. And again, you really want to keep your software up to date. If you don't want to be running an old version of Word or PowerPoint or Excel, or even an older version of Windows if it's no longer supported. So again, if your company's running Windows 7, they stop supporting Windows 7. If your company's running Windows XP, you definitely should not be using XP. Although no, there are a lot of companies like, I don't want to go to Windows 7, or I don't want to go to Windows 10 or Windows 11 or even Windows 8. But you have to. It's unfortunate, but you have to. Because again, hackers are looking for exploits and vulnerabilities, even for stuff that gets automatically updated. You're going to hear stuff which is like, day one vulnerabilities is what it's called. Apple has those all the time. We hear it all the time. Day one vulnerabilities. That's just why it's an arms race, as they say, between the hackers and the companies that create this stuff. But you're a lot better with the current. Again, I'm not saying this definitively. You got to make your own decisions. But you potentially. I'm not saying there's no absolutes with this sort of thing, but you really shouldn't have older software on your computers because those have probably been hacked long ago. Again, not saying they have or not, but I'm just saying But you also need current software anyway because your customers are using current software. You can't send them an old file that's no longer supported. How are they going to open it? My problem was I had an old laptop, which I don't have anymore, which was on Windows XP, I think. It was an XP computer. The problem was, though, I had an older version of Office on it. And so when I tried to access files when I first started working here, they were all for the newer versions of Office, which I didn't have, so I couldn't open the files anyway. So it's not even from a hacking perspective, it's from a workplace perspective. So again, you want to make sure your operating systems and your software is up to date. It's important to use supported software that allows you to run regular updates. It's up to you if you want to turn on auto updates or not. The only precaution against turning on auto updates is sometimes an update is bugged. I mean, iOS has been that way. I know they've recalled some updates over the years, or sometimes the software update is bugged and it's better to not update. So again, I would say maybe don't enable auto updates necessarily, but it's just something to be aware of. So you have the latest security fixes as soon as they are available. But again, sometimes the update can be bugged. You usually find out that after the fact. usually a few days later. So it's not the end of the world. You have to update that day. Is my personal thoughts on the matter. I'm not really an IT expert, but but you may want to be a little bit cautious because again, the update could be bugged. And then they realize that after they've distributed the update. So again, then they'll recall the update, and then you've got a bugged version of your whatever software or what have you until they send a new update which isn't bugged. That doesn't happen that often, but it has happened. And again, if you're responsible for distributing computers to employees or colleagues, establish policies that limit what data can be stored on their devices. Again, if a device contains only the information necessary for someone to do their job, there's less risk to the company if it falls into the wrong hands. Again, that's like the laptops here at work that we have for some of our employees. They're all password protected. The iPads, password protected. There's nothing, it's another form of security for the library. Anyway, moving on. So again, Google Workspace is secure by design, but really all of your any website vendor hosts like GoDaddy, or if you're using like Microsoft Office or something like that, those should be secure as well by design. Although it doesn't hurt whoever you're hosting your website, even if it's like Etsy or something, do your due diligence, figure out, what are their security precautions. And another step though, is we talked about this off and on up to this point, is you also want to protect your customers. So we mainly talked about protecting passwords, identity, hardware, and apps. Now let's talk about some ways you can protect your customers. And by protecting your customers, you're protecting your business. The big one is using what's called HTTPS, which is the Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. A lot of like Google and stuff, like Chrome and your browsers, they require HTTPS for the most part. Otherwise, they're going to not put your search results into Chrome or into Google or Yahoo or something. They'll bury your search results if you're not using what's called HTTPS. And what does HTTPS do? Well, where is HTTPS? Well, you'll know when you look at a website address. They sort of hide the HTTP, but it's possible to figure it out. Is this an HTTP or an HTTPS? Well, a Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure is more secure than just your standard HTTP part, which is the beginning of all website addresses. It goes HTTPS:// whatever the website is. And we have HTTPS here at the library. It's important. Securing your website and protecting your web pages from unauthorized access is important. You want to restrict also website edit access to the people responsible for making those updates. Again, that's how it is here with our Drupal platform. Only select people can do more updates than others. Now, many websites are edited via, again, as I said, a web-based content management system that are accessed with the username and password. Again, if that's how your website is set up, then that's where the password safety tips I just spoke about come in handy, whether it's a password manager, two-step verification, or anything like that. Now, of course, another way to protect your site is what I just said, using HTTPS. And sometimes the easiest way to explain this is to look at it. If you have, again, as I said before, if you have a computer or a smartphone handy, pull up a website and look at the URL. And I know sometimes the website browsers hide this because it's something you don't need to see, but it's there. Is it HTTP or HTTPS? Again, the S means secure, and HTTPS tells a browser to encrypt the data exchanged with a web page. Again, it's a layer of encryption, a layer of security. It disguises the data and lessens the chance. Again, nothing's impossible with this being hacked, but again, it's more security. And I again use HTTPS. I would definitely recommend that personally. And it lessens the chance that information is viewed or manipulated by unauthorized people. Sometimes even your browser will warn you and say, hey, this website may not be secure because they're not using HTTPS, or they have an outdated security tag on their website or stuff like that. Again, it protects customer data that is viewed or exchanged via the website. eBay is HTTPS. The government websites are HTTPS. Just about everything is supposed to be HTTPS these days. And if you're on an HTTP and your website is HTTP, talk to your website provider or host and be like, why are we not on HTTPS? Change all your links to say HTTPS too. Especially if you're giving them to people outside your organization. Maybe in the past you were using HTTP on all your links that you gave to people. Well, update those to have HTTPS. I only say that because your browser will automatically look for HTTPS first before HTTP, but you've got nothing to lose by make sure the links that you're giving to other people, like clients and stuff like that, are the HTTPS versions of your website. And honestly, if you click the current link on your website and copy and paste that, it should hopefully be HTTPS. But anyway, again, it's important for personal data or financial information. All banks are HTTPS, but again, it's a good idea to use HTTPS even if your site doesn't handle sensitive information like our website. Our website doesn't we don't handle sensitive information. All your catalog stuff is not hosted by us. It's hosted by different platforms. So again, we're not worried about because you don't log into our website, you log into the catalog, which is not our website. But that doesn't mean we still don't have HTTPS. We do because it's important. So again, to use HTTPS, you need a secure certificate is what it's called. And most likely your web hosting provider offers this feature. And if they don't, you can buy a digital certificate from a company that sells them, call a certificate authority, and install it yourself through the website hosting. But honestly, I would think any website hosting who hosts your website worth their salt or is legitimate would give you HTTPS. I don't think you have to pay more for it, but I can't guarantee that. But again, it's important to use it because apart from security benefits, as I said briefly a moment ago, it can improve your website's ranking on search engines. Google, for example, will bury your result, may hide your or bury your result if you're not using HTTPS on their website. And this part was called SEO or search engine optimization, which there are whole books written about that. But HTTPS is one of the simpler things you can do to improve your search results if somebody's looking for a product that you sell and they're using Google or Yahoo or Bing or what have you, because it's viewed as a positive ranking symbol. Again, Google sites include security by default, but really all security hosting providers should. But anyway, you can learn. Sorry, I'm all over the place now. You can learn more if you want to at google.com/sites if you decide to use Google Sites as your website provider. Again, I am not telling you to do that. We don't even use Google Sites here at the library. But anyway, the next step, of course, is protecting your email. We talked about this a lot earlier, but we're coming back to it again. Protecting your business online doesn't stop with your website. Another consideration is who is your email provider. Choose a provider that provides encryption. All the major email providers do. Office, Office, Microsoft Office or Outlook, I guess is the technical term for the email side of things. Microsoft Office, Yahoo, maybe even other ones like Rocket Mail. I have no reason to think they don't, but I don't use Rocket Mail, or Yahoo. Again, there's so many email providers out there, but make sure that they're offering what's called that supports encryption. For example, transport layer security, or otherwise called as TLS, is an important step towards protecting your businesses and your customers. By default, again, because this is a Google presentation at heart, Gmail always tries to use a secure TLS connection when sending email. However, secure TLS connection requires that both the sender and the recipient uses TLS. If the receiving server doesn't use TLS, Gmail still delivers messages, but the connection isn't secure. I would think, again, I think most larger providers use TLS. You can always do your research too. Does Yahoo offer TLS? I have no reason to think that it doesn't. I would think they would. But again, that's just the technical side of things. But again, going back to what we talked about earlier, be careful when don't open suspicious emails, period. I'd have to do that here at the library. Most of that stuff goes to my junk mail account, but I will see stuff in my inbox, which is like, no, this is all wrong. And I'm not going to click on this. Sometimes, unsolicited email is called spam, but that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes spam is simply an online version of a cold call. We get that all the time here at the library. Mostly about programs, but also about, hey, I want to improve your search ranking results, or hey, I want to do your website. Like, no, just avoid all that. Plus, they're emailing everybody, and it's like, well, you didn't even offer us a personalized solution. So really, who's going to read this and get back to you? Or they're like, hey, include our website on your include a link to our website on your website. No, not going to happen. But anyway, sometimes spam, though, can also be a cyber attack attempt. And again, remind employees and colleagues to, again, this is really important stuff to tell your employees or colleagues and even yourself. I say this to me too. Be careful when clicking on email attachments, downloading files, or visiting new URLs. I lost a personal computer because I clicked a URL which was legitimate and it wasn't legitimate, and there went my computer. Virus ahoy. Never click on links in unsolicited emails. This is especially true. Look out for suspicious sender email addresses and email signatures. And never share personal information such as usernames and passwords, social security numbers, credit card numbers, etc. I really like this next example because this Ace Hardware thing, we see this all the time here at the library in the junk mail folder. This is all wrong. Answer and win a brand new DeWalt heater. No, absolutely not. This is not a legitimate authorized email from the brand. This is all wrong. This is like a phishing attempt. In a phishing attempt, again, a cyber criminal impersonates a trustworthy brand or person, in which case Ace, and I've literally seen this ad in the library's email addresses. This is about one of the best examples they've given in this presentation. You will see this, and it doesn't matter if it's your work account. They want access. These hackers or or criminals or whoever, they want access to what you have, and they're going to lure you in this way. So again, you want to trick you into taking an action that gives them access to your business or customers. For example, they might want to trick you into installing a malicious piece of software called malware that will give them full access to your computer data. Or they might impersonate a credit card company in order to steal your username and password or other and financial information and financial information. Phishing attacks can target an individual person or be broadcasted to a large group. And phishing is not limited to email. Again, it can happen in a variety of places. I've gotten spam phishing text messages. I got one that impersonated the library one time. Well, it wasn't quite that extreme, but I'm like, no, absolutely not. That only happened once. Fortunately, I don't get a lot of phishing text messages, but they can happen. Messaging apps and websites. To make matters worse, phishing attacks they can be fairly sophisticated. And we're going to see some examples of these in just a moment. And the communications may appear legitimate at first glance. I've seen some really good ones where I'm like, this really looks legitimate, but it's not. So let's take a look at how you can identify some suspicious emails. Well, first of all, there's always a threat of unplanned expense or emergency. I remember one of the first pieces of spam messages I ever got, and I didn't even know what spam was in those days, was back in, the far off year of 1999. And I still remember this because I had an email address and I started getting spam. And I didn't realize, how am I getting this spam? Did someone who I didn't like at school, did they give my email address out to people to give me spam? Of course, that's how clueless I was about the internet in those days. Obviously, none of my fellow students did that. I was getting spam because that's just the nature of spam. And this was back in 99. They can be difficult to spot, but again, going back to my example, I knew one of these was completely like phishing and not spam because it said, your eBay account has either been hacked or we need you to log into your eBay account. I didn't have an eBay account. I'm like, and that's how I knew it was all wrong, because I'm like, I don't even have an eBay account. Therefore, I'm not going to try and log into an eBay account, of which I do not have and does not exist. But again, there are warning signs that can help you make a decision. Unfortunately, each of these signs does not necessarily indicate that something is spam. There's nothing 100%, but it's a combination of signals that will help tip you off. First of all, this is the big one, and this is how this is my first way I go to when I'm trying to figure out if something is spam or not, is, do you recognize who sent you this email? Check the name. Does it match the email address you expect? If the displayed name is your well-known financial institution, but the email address is give me your money 12345@gmail.com, that's a good clue that this is not a legitimate email. But again, that's not foolproof either, because other email addresses have been hacked before. I saw this example again last week from another library in Colorado. Someone had hacked the employee's email address. Again, I knew something was wrong because I reviewed other things. For example, the email subject line. Many spam emails inject a sense of urgency, hoping you'll take action. The email might literally include the word urgent in all capital letters, although usually it's more subtle than that these days, but regardless, it's there. Sometimes in the example shown on the slide, the subject line will warn you about an unexpected expense. Again, they're trying to get you scared and click on the link. Some email programs like Google offer the option to select an identity photo. If you know the sender and knows the absence of their profile photo, it's another warning sign. We have identity photos here through Outlook. I use it. Not all my coworkers do, but most do. The next clue and that's, you can see here, that's this blue circle, with like the person in their head. Again, I don't personally use a photo, I think, for my personal email, who I won't say who the provider is, but just know that in the past, if you notice that photo and suddenly you don't see it, That's an indicator that something may be amiss. The other thing is, this is true, especially for spam, is, it's poorly written copy. Although this may change as AI starts to take over and people aren't using like bots to do this. It'll be a judgment part on your call, because even the biggest brands can make spelling or grammar mistakes. What was the one I saw lately? I think it was EBSCO. EBSCO is a legitimate library database vendor. They sent out an email and they had the wrong link. I'm like, what is this? I mean, it wasn't a phishing link. Fortunately, it wasn't that bad. Although, again, maybe I should have been more suspicious of EBSCO, because again, you could be fooled even by a legitimate vendor. But then they sent an updated email that said, "Oops, our bad. Our mistake. We sent you the wrong link." But again, fortunately, the link wasn't anything malicious. It was just like, oh, well, this linked out to the wrong thing. But I trusted the vendor, and maybe I should be more suspicious in the future. Again, if the phrasing is awkward, or if the sentences don't read naturally, it's a sign that the email text may even be the product, of a translation tool, and possibly spam. So again, look at the subject line of the email on this side. Invoice has been done, not has been done. And we will charge dues 348.60. Again, this is a big warning, like, no, this is written incorrectly, like totally incorrectly. And that, against a red flag that this is not a legitimate email. And again, be very careful about any attachments. Be very careful about clicking any links. Again, if it's from a sender you don't recognize, never click an attachment or an email that you suspect is spam. It could very well put bad software on your computer, and that's where they hack you or put you up for ransomware. I like this example, but it's a little small. In fact, even this one sort of got me a little bit. So again, can you spot the fake between these two emails? We're sort of running out of time, so I can't have you look at it for very long, but I'll maybe give it a couple seconds. The one on the left and the one on the right. So again, can you spot the fake? Well, there's an immediate thing to me, but we'll talk about them both in just a second. Both of these appear to be legitimate. Again, at a very brief glance, these look like these are genuine Google pages. They look like, that this is this two-step verification process. Again, enter the code. This is after you've already put in the password, but now enter the code. And again, can you spot the fake? Well, first of all, this is what got me, because usually when I see a fake URL, the fake part of the URL starts at the beginning of the URL or the address, but it's also at the end. I usually see it more on the front side when I'm hovering over a link, but this got me because it starts out correctly. It's from accounts.google.com.http, and here's where it goes wrong, .https-com.tn. The accounts.google.com is a legitimate part of that URL, but the stuff after it is not. So this is a website that you assume is google.com, but it isn't. Also, there's an unknown sender and there's no profile photo. This is from unknown sender at example.com. Bad. You don't recognize this person, hence the unknown sender. There's no profile photo. Again, that's not a deal breaker, though. There are plenty of website email addresses out there that don't have the profile photo. The clue that, again, clinches it, as I said, is the URL. It's really It's really tricky because at a quick glance, it looks legitimate. You see the accounts.google.com, assume it's legitimate when you don't look at the part after it. You'll see that the next character after that .com is not a /, it's a period. That's what you would have seen if the domain ended in .com, is a slash after the .com / something else. But no, instead of the / the URL or website address continues with .https-com.tn. That's not a Google URL. Don't go to that website either. I'm sure Google would only use this example, as like for a website they already have like control over, but I'm scared that this may not be. So never go to this website. Go to accounts.google.com, yes, but don't go to accounts.google.com.https-com-tn. TN is usually the country level domain. .ca, for example, is Canada, and I think AU is Australia. But anyway, getting beside that. Of course, Gmail blocks a lot of spam and phishing attempts, but it's not foolproof. We use Outlook here. It's not foolproof either. It says Gmail blocks an estimated 10 million spam emails every minute and 100 million phishing attempts every day. That's a lot of phishing attempts. And again, I won't go into more about this, but again, they have additional security as well if you decide to go that route, but you can do your own research on that end. But again, your email provider should hopefully prevent this stuff from getting to you. But if it does get to you, again, delete it. Don't open it. Delete it. Think again. The bottom line is think before you click. The other important thing though is to plan ahead. As I said earlier, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and this holds true with most things in life, including cybersecurity. First of all, you really need to have a plan ready for what happens if who is in charge and what needs to be done. You need a secure, in case you have a security problem. A data breach response plan outlines who's in charge and what needs to be done if sensitive or confidential data is viewed or stolen by an unauthorized person. We have disaster planning here at the library. This response plan can protect your business assets by ensuring that action is taken quickly if things go wrong. You won't be running around with your head cut off. You need to figure out what to do. For example, in the case of a ransomware attack in which cyber criminals steal sensitive data and demand a ransom for its return, a solid response plan would include making sure you have recent data backups. We have data backups here at the library. I'm not going to say how we back up data here because I don't know if there's any bad actors. Not you who's watching this, but anyone who may be watching this later on YouTube. I'm not going to tell you what our backup plan is. I have an idea what it is. Even I don't fully know what it is because again, that doesn't apply to me. I don't even know about the data backup plan. It's not my wheelhouse. But again, we have data backups. Your company should have data backups. How do you access those backups? Maybe you have to revert to an older version of your data backups that doesn't have the scareware, the ransomware, the virusware, the whatever on it. Also, you got to notify your customers. You have to do this. I know it's scary, but you have to be up to date with your customers. You can't lie to them. If you are upfront with them and honest about them and say, here's what we're doing, here's how we're working to fix this, it's better that than trying to cover it up. And again, take time to develop a clear plan in advance so everyone understands what steps to follow if a security incident occurs. And this even includes your line level employees. What are you doing? Because people are going to be calling and they're going to be asking and they're going to say, hey, what's going on here? Something's wrong. And that's why the clear line of communication is important. That's what London did when they really got ransomware attacked. Because I remember seeing their tweets and stuff like that about it. And it's good to have a record of all the technical assets that you're currently using. What platforms, tools, and software are you using? What accounts like social media do you have? Again, don't forget to include suppliers and customers as well as your employees. That's ever in that. It doesn't hurt to even have like a physical copy of all your email addresses and passwords. I know people have like physical copies of all their email addresses and their passwords because they need an offline version of that stuff. So during your inventory, you might also discover out-of-date software, which again is a potential target for cyber criminals. Answering these questions, like what platform tools and software are you using? Are they up to date? What accounts do you have? What hardware do you use? They're important for improving online safety. Again, asset inventory. Again, you really need clear policies. You need to keep your employees updated on good cybersecurity practices. You don't wait. You might designate someone at your business to be responsible for online safety policies and training. I sort of do that here a little bit through online tutorials I do, or if I see something suspicious, I'll send an email to the library and say, hey, this came into my inbox. This doesn't look legitimate at all. If you got the same thing, just ignore it. We got like someone impersonating our time card software. We got an email like that. I'm like, this is not legitimate. I'm going to email the HR person, say, hey, just a heads up, and also post it to our intranet, which is our internal communications platform, say, hey, if you got this, maybe stay away. Again, you can create an internal training website where security information and resources are available. Again, just be cautious, be smart, be victorious. And again, you want to create a security culture. You want to talk with your employees regularly about security. It's important. You can't just say, well, I'm sure my employees wouldn't do this. Well, nobody wants to do this. It happens by accident. And I say that for myself as well. I try and be vigilant, but it's always important to read up on the newest sort of things and keep people aware of what's going on. Ideally they feel comfortable, and you want them to feel comfortable reporting concerns or mistakes without fear of blame. Because if they click something and they don't tell you, and their computer's been hacked and they're not telling you because they're scared, that your company's now been compromised because your employee is too fearful to say, hey, I made a mistake. We make mistakes. We all make mistakes. You just have to be honest about it and say, hey, we're going to focus on identifying, resolving the issue, and preventing similar problems from happening again, not pointing fingers. You can build a security culture by discussing security regularly, encouraging employees to share concerns, and making sure that company leaders model good security practices. Again, think about the security culture in your business. How can you make improvements? Now, what do you do though if you're attacked? Consider this scenario. You've done everything right, but you're a victim of a cyber attack. Again, maybe you accidentally clicked on a link in a phishing email, or your account was hacked. Maybe you don't even know how your systems were breached. That can often be the case, but you notice suspicious activity on an account. If you even suspect that you've been attacked, you should take proactive steps immediately. Again, hopefully your business has an IT department, whether it's somebody on staff or you've been outsourcing this thing. Start by telling your IT department what happened. And for many small businesses, though, that IT department might be you. So what if it's just you? Well, for starters, contact your bank, credit card companies, and all other financial institutions. Check regularly for any activity you don't recognize and report fraudulent activity. Again, I'm not saying do this or don't do this. It's just general advice provided by Google. So again, you make the best decision for you. Close or place holds on any accounts that you suspect may have been compromised. Check your credit report for any new accounts that you didn't open. This is true for individuals. You can request a free credit report from each of the 3 nationwide credit reporting agencies every 12 months, or maybe your bank that you go through will give you free credit reports on demand. Report any fraudulent accounts or loans that you don't recognize. It's important. Again, we saw the catch me if you can scenario where it was like, again, this, just something to be aware of. Again, he was using phishing and social engineering to get free money, writing fake checks, and considering protecting your credit by placing a fraud alert or freezing your credit. Again, file a report. After securing your bank and credit information, report the attack to the appropriate agencies. I'm not saying they can do anything, but you really should report it. File a report with the local police, so there's no official record so there is an official record of the incident. The next step is to report it with the FBI's Internet Crime Compliance Center, or I3C. Cyber crimes reported here will be investigated and referred to the appropriate agency. Again, ic3.gov is how you report that stuff. Very important. And again, also contact if the security breach involved fraud, scams, or bad business practices. You can also contact the Federal Trade Commission at www.reportfraud.ftc.gov. If you find any fraudulent activity on your credit report or reasonably someone is using your social security number, you can also file an identity theft report at www.idtheft.gov. Again, it's really hard to, you just feel shamed and feel like you've been used for anyone who's had their identity stolen. Next step, of course, is change your passwords. Again, depending on the situation, if you're experiencing a ransomware attack, you should immediately disconnect the affected device from your network. If data was stolen or compromised, you should take steps to protect your company, inform customers if their data was involved. No matter what type of cyber attack you experienced, it's smart to change your passwords. Change them regularly. That's how it is here at the library. We constantly we're required to change our passwords on a regular basis. If your equipment or systems are compromised because of malicious software, you may need to seek professional technical support. Do a search for managed security support provider to see options for companies that might be able to help. Again, do your due diligence. I can't recommend anybody, but you maybe can look on like the Better Business Bureau or see if they have any referrals or anything. And again, continually monitor your credit and financial accounts is important. So again, let's just take a brief recap. Again, consider using strong passwords, consider using a password manager, use two-step verification whenever possible, keep equipment safe, including mobile devices, again, not just the software, but the hardware as well, secure websites with HTTPS, use an email provider that supports encryption, make a plan, create a list of tech assets, develop and nurture a security culture. Again, don't wait for a cyber attack to happen to figure out what you will need to do. Make a plan and create a list of your tech assets. And finally, get your colleagues and employees on board by developing and nurturing a security culture. More safety tips from Google. Again, visit Google Safety Center for tools and tips to help you stay safe online. Not just them, but it's got good stuff there. But again, take what you learned and apply it to other services as well. Again, you can keep learning on YouTube for not just cybersecurity, but all sorts of stuff. YouTube.com/go with Google. Again, I'm posting it to our library's personal account, but again, this, just you need to be aware. Again, they cover topics that include grow your business, your skills, careers, and businesses. We also provide complimentary access to LinkedIn Learning for any of our card holders. LinkedIn Learning, of course, is owned by LinkedIn, who's owned by Microsoft. But they have all sorts of video tutorials and stuff on there to learn all sorts of things, not just software being safe online, but like how to how to do better at sales, how to be a better manager, how to do time management, so on and so forth. Just a bunch of really good videos, which I talked about more in my library resources for job seekers presentation. And maybe the business one as well. I don't remember. But anyway, again, Google also offers career certificates, which again, you'd have to pay for. But again, it's just a way of building, assuming the place you're applying for will accept it. But again, just good for your knowledge base as well. Okay, and then we're just getting to the end here. For Google certificates, if that's the route you decide we want to take, again, I'm not a Google shill. Again, you have to pay for these. You could potentially earn a certificate and prepare for a new career in a high growth field in under 6 months, even if you don't have relevant experience. They've got different tracks like data analytics, business intelligence, advanced data analytics, e-commerce, IT support, etc. If you ever use one of our LinkedIn LinkedIn Learning, which we have access to, I mean, they'll give you a certificate as well, but again, it won't have your name on it, but you could always write your name on it. But again, it's just, but will your employer accept this certificate is up to them. There's no guarantees. You have to contact the employer in advance, or even your own personal employer. But anyway, again, there's free online training and tools at google.com/grow for teachers and students, for local businesses. Again, this is what I'm using for this presentation. For developers, so on and so forth. Again, they'll show you how to build your online presence and find new customers. Startups can learn how to get their ideas, the exposure they need to succeed. And again, job seekers can grow their skills in order to find new jobs and advance their careers. And for that, I will say thank you so much for attending today's workshop. Again, we talked a lot about a lot of different topics today, but I encourage you, be vigilant, always have a plan, and even read up on read up on what's happened to some companies who have been successfully hacked. I know it's a sad story, but figure out what did they do and how did they try and improve things, and know that if you get hacked, like especially really hacked, like with ransomware, it's going to take time to get everything back up and running again. I believe for the London Public Library, it took them months, like at least a couple months, if not more, to slowly bring their services back online. They got hacked so badly. I'm positive it was London. If London Public Library reads this and like, Omar, you're completely wrong. I'm sorry, but I thought it was them. Or in St. Louis Public Library, which again, I believe was hacked as well a long time ago. It took time to bring back their services, make sure everything's clean, maybe everything's clear, so on and so forth. So with that, I will say thanks again. I'll go ahead and stop my share. I'll turn my camera back on. And again, I'll try and turn my camera back on. I'll say thank you everybody for coming out here this evening and listening to this presentation. I will email out the slides and the handout to everyone. And again, I just encourage you again, please be vigilant, please be safe, please be secure. Newcomer 217, welcome. Again, I'm just getting into the presentation. I say again, thank you for coming out here this evening, or if you're watching this later on YouTube. Again, be secure, be vigilant. And just, and we all make mistakes, but just again, an ounce of preparation is worth a pound of cure. So again, with that, I will sign off. I will stop the recording.